Hey, well, everyone, welcome to the Curriculum Community of Practice. Today we have a special presentation by parents as teachers. They're going to be presenting on their curriculum called PAT Interactions Across Abilities. It's for families with developmental disabilities. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Lindsay Shaw and Rochelle Cervantes.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome everyone. My name is Lindsay Shaw. I'm the Director of Content and Curricula at Parents as Teachers National Center. So I have been with Parents as Teachers for quite a while. It started in 2013, full-time in 2016. And the entirety of my career with Parents as Teachers have been working on training and curriculum development. And so this is a space in which I hold near and dear as I've been in this work for quite some time. And I'm going to do actually an introduction, and then I'm going to actually pass it off to Rochelle, who knows this curricula better than maybe anyone, and the training as well. So Rochelle, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Rochelle Cervantes, and I am the trainer manager for Parents as Teachers National Center. And I'm also a bilingual national trainer. So I am working with trainers, but I also do training on a regular basis. So very familiar with the interactions across abilities because this is sort of where my career started with working with families in early intervention programs. So a lot of my work started way back in working with an early intervention program locally, of which then we built Parents as Teachers services to support those kids in transition to schools and getting ready for school settings. So that's my background and some of the work that I've done around disabilities services for families. And then now I get to really work on the training side, which is really exciting to share that knowledge and also work side by side with home visitors who are providing these services to families in homes. So really excited to be here and share this curriculum with you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Rochelle, are you going to share slides or would you like me to?
I can do it.
Perfect. All right. So again, just thanks for taking the time. We are so excited to share this introduction of the Parents as Teachers curricula, which is Interactions Across Abilities, which is supporting children, families of children with special needs. And really, the name of this curricula really shows our intentional focus on those interactions. Much like all the rest of Parents as Teachers products, we focus on those interactions between parents and their caregivers because we know that all children are learning through those relationships and experiences with those around them. And these interactions include everything from spontaneous playful moments to carefully planned daily routines, all while acknowledging that children have different and growing abilities. So do their parents, so do their caregivers, and so do those professionals who work with them. And so this curriculum really aims to kind of pull all of those relationships or acknowledge all of those relationships in the resources that support it. Now, we also know, as you all do as well, that interplay between delays and disabilities, development-centered parenting, and family well-being is complex and it's varied, and we can't possibly cover it all in one curricula. However, we hope that what this does is give a foundation and a substantial bank of resources for you to draw from. And so what this curricula does too is allows you to individualize the services that you provide to families, especially those families who are experiencing developmental delays or other medical diagnoses. So before we dive into the curricula itself, we want to pose a question to you all, just to kind of get you thinking. And so if you don't mind just typing in the chat, so what is one word that comes to mind when you think about working with families who have a child with a diagnosis or a delay? Challenging. Sally. Being patient. Those families have incredible strength, right? Sometimes you have to think outside the box. It doesn't always fit with the resources that we use. Yeah. Families are overwhelmed. Caregivers are overwhelmed. As providers, you may feel overwhelmed and not really sure where to start. And I appreciate so many strengths-based words coming here, right? This is that families are resilient, that, it can be challenging, but we also have this ability to be creative and think outside the box and really explore what works, that partnership with families and what works for them and their children. So I appreciate you taking that moment, and you can continue to put those words in there if you would like. And we're going to kind of think about what are the objectives of our time together today? So first and foremost, we would like you all to walk away with an understanding of this curricula, what it is, what it can do for you, how it might fit within the services that you're already providing. And within that, we're going to introduce some of the professional resources, the parent handouts and activity pages that are built within this curricula. So we'll show you some of what it looks like. And then again, think about how that relates to your current practices. And then we also want to think about how the ways in which the Parents as Teachers curricula as a whole, as well as with this supplemental curricula, support children of all abilities in home visits. Because again, we want you to feel as confident as you can walking into visits with these families. And so one of the things, so before we dive into this curricula itself, we also want to think about what are like these fundamental values that Parents as Teachers has. We are driven by the values that we believe about families, and we think that, we firmly believe that those values drive how we communicate and how we interact with others. And so the values that we want to lift up that Parents as Teachers holds important with regard to supporting families who have children with disabilities, and these values have informed this curricula, are those that a child is an individual with strengths and is not defined by their disability, condition, or delay. So first and foremost, a child is a child. And we also believe that a child is a member of the family. They're a part of the system of individuals who influence each other, are influenced by each other, their environment, and other systems. So they're not growing in isolation. And we also believe that a strong parent-child relationship promotes optimal child health, development, and well-being for all children. And the fourth value that we want to lift up is that the family and the professional have instrumental roles on a collaborative team within the education or service delivery system. So within this curricula, we're also supporting those collaborations across different service delivery teams. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle, who's going to take us a little bit deeper into the curricula itself.
So another important value that Parents as Teachers holds about children is the opportunity to participate. And there may be opportunities during a child's day in which they may want to or even need to participate. And some of these opportunities include play, social interactions, everyday activities and routines, and just being part of. So promoting participation in all of these opportunities and everyday activities is going to increase learning. And for children with disabilities, it's important that they can participate and have a sense of belonging. It's also important that children with disabilities feel like they belong in their communities, they belong in the environments that they are in, and they belong in their family. And they're offered the same kinds of opportunities as children their own age without disabilities. So oftentimes we'll notice, and maybe some of you have seen this in your work, where a child with a disability is maybe separated out of protection or put with a younger group because of their delays and disabilities. So a true sense of belonging and inclusion would mean that children are able to participate with their age-appropriate peers, children their own age. So these are the fundamental beliefs that drive the resources in the curriculum. And you'll notice that the structure of the IAA curriculum, Interactions Across Abilities curriculum, is different. For those of you that are using the foundational, is a little different. And it's structured primarily around parenting behaviors. And a big chunk of it, you'll see, I'll jump in the curriculum in a minute, But a big chunk of it is around the parenting behaviors, nurturing, designing, guiding, responding, communicating, supportive learning. Those of you that use the foundational, this is going to be familiar for you. And the rationale is that the parenting behaviors encompass all families, regardless of that disability, regardless of the developmental milestones that they're at, regardless of any of those diagnoses, the parenting behaviors are present. So structuring a visit around that is going to be meeting families right where they are. So as parent educators and home visitors, you might be familiar with these. You have them in your personal visits. You also, if you use your toolkit cards, we have the red card of which lists those parenting behaviors. And so you're going to be familiar with some of these terms. One of the ways that we incorporate those parenting behaviors is we want to be real intentional about focusing on them. And you'll notice terms like anticipate, watch, and respond. Anticipate the presence of parenting behaviors in a visit. You want to notice them. You want to watch for them. And then in that watching, you're going to start noticing parents interacting with their children. And those are things that you can lift up in the visit. And also the responding, of which really responding to those parenting behaviors by sharing with families what you're seeing and how it's impacting that child's growth and development. So these are strategies that you're going to notice that are embedded throughout those activity pages, the planning, etc. So using the parenting behaviors and the concept of anticipating, watching, and responding. So when you go through training, or if you choose to go through IAA training, what comes with IAA training is you get a link to the curriculum that you can download right to your computer, of which would be available for navigation. You can take that with you. You can download, you can print out parent handouts, etc. And so this is a little bit different than what you're used to with a foundational Parents as Teachers curriculum, because it actually stays on your computer. And you get a set of toolkit cards that you can add that are real specific to topics around disability, behavior, those parenting behaviors, and even some strategies and ways that to interact with parents around these topics. You also receive a folder with fillable forms that you can use. And I'm going to go a little deeper with those in a bit and give you some ideas on what those might look like. And also just to share some highlights of the content. The clickable links moves you through the content. We have titles and divider pages by topic. So I'll show you that in a bit here. And much like your foundational curriculum, you'll notice that there is a pattern. You click on one, and then it takes you right to the resource. You'll also notice that there's different types of resource in this curriculum in IAA, and even the introduction of professional resources that are unique to interacting with professionals when you have a child with a disability. So let me pause here. I'm going to switch screens and give you a little glance at our index page and how you navigate the IA curriculum. So I'm starting on the table of contents page here. What I want to highlight is really how it's laid out. So you'll notice there's some terminology. If you're new to working with families with disabilities, this is an important section to learn what's the Parents as Teachers approach to interacting with families. The beliefs that Lindsay shared earlier are also highlighted in there. And then what are some considerations in how to use and incorporate these components into the curriculum? There's also a glossary of terms, which is really important when working and addressing parents who have children with disabilities. You'll notice here that we start with red flags. This is typically how we come to know families with disabilities at such a young age. We start noticing those red flags, or those are the conversations that you're having. And so you'll see some topics that are unique to those conversations, like what are risk factors? How does early intervention work? What are social interactions? And what do different types of skills lead to? So you're going to see this section of promoting development and recognizing red flags. You're also going to notice diagnosis related basics. And this is just sort of gives you a baseline of that conversation that could happen oftentimes at this age group when children are just getting diagnosed, or parents are telling you the doctor's saying this, or there's this concern. You have some resources that can help you. So if a parent comes and says the doctor wants to do genetic testing, you have some resources. You can go in and read about what genetic testing is and what the process looks like. And there's even handouts that support that conversation that you can share with the parent. What you might be noticing, those of you that provide support to families that speak Spanish, right under each of our parent-facing materials, you'll see the translated version right under, and those are available for you to share with families as well. So this is all diagnosis-related materials. And then we go into the service continuum. Once we figure out, navigate that process with the family, support the family through the diagnostic process, there's some bigger conversations that have to happen too. What are my rights? What is early intervention? Where do I find support? And so there, under this service continuum tab, you're going to notice IEPs, Individuals with Disabilities Act, what service delivery conversations might need to be. And again, depending on the age and where the family is, these are great supports for those conversations. And then I'm moving into the content here. This is where I mentioned the parenting behaviors, and you'll see that each title, there's nurturing. You'll see all of the parent handouts and activity pages. PH for those parent handouts. Those of you that use curriculum, you're going to recognize that. And then, so these are all under each of the different parenting behaviors: communicating, supported learning. I don't want to make you dizzy while I'm scrolling here, but to get us through here. And then we jump into the activity pages section. And here, very specific, we're going to be talking about parent-child interaction activity pages, and then adaptive assistive technology. And then we go into parent-professional relationship pages. These are pages that are specific to supporting those parent-professional relationships that families with disabilities now have to navigate a little differently. And so it's just so I want to get to this bottom section here: conditions, disorders, or disabilities. This is definitely a very short list, but what we've done here is collected some of the common things that come up at this age group, some disabilities that can be presented or have been presented a little more frequently. Again, when you're talking to a family and they say, you know, my doctor is saying there might be a concern about autism or a learning disability or a heart defect, you can come to these resources to pull more information for yourself to navigate and prepare you for the conversations. And then I'm going to go into what those pages look like here in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause. I've talked a lot. What are your first impressions of the curriculum so far? You can come off mute or type in the chat. What are you noticing about the curriculum?
This is Eileen from Healthy Families. I noticed that it's very diverse. It covers a lot of different categories, and it gives a lot of concrete, usable things that make sense for families instead of making it too complicated for families.
I'm sorry. And that's the goal, to support those conversations that you're having. Some of these are introductory type conversations. You're just exploring some of this information for the first time with families. We definitely don't want to overwhelm them with things that are too complicated or overwhelming. I see user-friendly. definitely a way to navigate. It's structured very very simple, and that index is going to help guide you in your searches for what you're looking for. Okay, so
One thing I wanted to ask, and you may be going to cover this later, if say, for example, a home visitor has a family with a child who has been diagnosed with autism, what would this curriculum help? How would this curriculum help that home visitor present curriculum materials to that child in a way that would be developmentally appropriate for the child?
yeah, so one of the great things about the curriculum is that we're not going to give you an activity page around a diagnosis, or we're not going to say these are activities for children with autism. You're going to really be looking at where the child is at and what are we working on. And so those conversations are guided. There is some resources around working, around what is autism, what is sensory processing, some of those that are going to be common conversations. But when it comes to working with a child with autism, you're going to meet that child right where they are. Let's say it's something about eating, or it's something about textures, it's something about whatever that particular issue is, you would navigate the curriculum to build an activity around that concern. And that's what's so cool about this curriculum is it's not tied to ages. It's not going to be tied to a diagnosis. It's going to be really fluid for you to meet that child and parent right where they're working and what they're trying to accomplish with that particular baby step in development. So it really gives a lot of flexibility. And I am going to go a little bit further into that, Maylee, in a minute. So I'll show you a couple of examples of how you would use some of our resources.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So let me show you a screen here. This is a professional resource for parent educators, those of you that are going to be using the curriculum. And I wanted to give you an idea of how it's going to support your conversations. So for instance, this one is on sensory processing. Sensory processing is not just unique to children with autism. There's so many different diagnoses that have sensory processing as a symptom or a side, or a diagnostic symptom. So one of the things that we do here is, like I said, kind of broad. Let's say a parent tells you he's having trouble, doctor says baby is having trouble with sensory processing. You could pull this document up. At the beginning of the document, you're going to read some research. You're going to read a little overview of what sensory processing is. And maybe as a parent educator, you've never heard about this, or you have very limited knowledge of it. This is going to give you a broad, kind of user-friendly overview of what we're talking about, what it is. And then it also gives you a list of parent handouts and activity pages that can be shared. So here it really customizes. These are focus parent handouts that you can share around this particular topic, and even activity pages that you could do that support sensory processing development. And I'll kind of bring that out for you there. These are a couple, I know they're a little small, but you can see some of the handouts and these are very, again, user-friendly. My child is full of energy. That doesn't say we're not really zoning in on that sensory processing or diagnosis. We're talking about a very broad symptom that comes with sensory processing. And then the second page, you're going to notice here, there's reliable websites, there's some research and a little more information for you to share. Maybe that these are pieces that you could pull a few points that seem to connect with the parents' conversations. If a parent is saying, I want to know more, or what else can I learn about this? You've got some resources here that link you to reputable websites, and also some verbiage that you might use in supporting your conversations as you explore this diagnosis with a parent. Even behaviors. You're going to see some behaviors that are common in sensory processing. And then it goes into a couple more things for parent educators. This is so important for us as parent educators, is to know what what are some challenges parents are facing when this conversation is had or when they're exploring this with a doctor in the diagnostic realm? So these are some things challenges parents might face. And then it jumps into your role as a parent educator. So you reading this is really going to help you understand the parent perspective. And then it's also going to prepare you with those conversations and your role as a parent educator. So these are all for you. And these are the ones that kind of guide your preparation and your planning. Oops. And then we go into parent-child interaction. I want to talk a little bit about this area. Many of you may already be thinking right now, I have a child in mind that I've worked with, that I'm thinking about, that I want to use this curriculum or this content with this family. And you've been relying on your own knowledge of child development to support them. And sometimes you're even getting support from maybe the therapist that might be involved or an early intervention provider that's helping out. But this parent-child interaction area of emphasis is where we really start looking at modifications and adaptations the most in a visit. And we all always kind of think, let's start at that base point. Parents know their child best, and then just you as an expert and bringing in your expertise, what are you already doing or what do you already see happening? And that's sort of where we start. So I want to give us a little break here, and I have a little scenario that's pretty common at this age group. I want us to read this together. This is Will, introducing Will, who's 2 years old, and he's got some challenges, knocking things over. He gets really frustrated pretty quick. He lines blocks. He doesn't necessarily stack them. He has trouble with stacking, and he throws tantrums when he feels unsuccessful or just starts screaming when he can't accomplish a task. So thinking of Will, this 2-year-old, what are some things that you might try as a provider? Maybe try with facilitating this particular activity or supporting him through this activity. What are some ideas that you have that you might try? Again, you can come off mute or type in the chat.
Give him opportunities with activities that he can be successful in. And also if there's a possibility he could have a sensory problem, so maybe blocks that have more of a different type of texture to it instead of just a basic, wood block. So look at what his needs are. And oftentimes when they're mouthing toys, it may be that they need to have that sensory in the mouth, but you don't want them to mouth toys that they have on the floor and stuff. So give them something for their mouth to orally stimulate themselves.
All right. Eileen's already thinking about what adaptations and modifications are. Those are some things that you might try. And asking the parent, okay, is it frustrating because maybe the blocks are too small? Maybe we need to start with larger blocks. Maybe, like you're saying, there's the touch or the feel of the block. So you're already kind of thinking, what would work? What are some things we can try? And that is when we talk about accommodations and adaptations, that is where we start. What's working, what's not working, and what can we try? And I'm going to show you a couple of the resources that we use and how these might support your conversations. So this is a parent-child interaction activity page. And it looks a little different. Those of you that use the foundational curriculum, this looks a little different, but still the same components, just laid out a little in a different way. What do we have? That's getting you prepared with the items that you need and what we're going to be using, the blocks, etc., shoebox, all the items that you're needing. And then how do we do it is the explanation of the activity. But right here, this little question, I wonder what will happen. And sharing that, asking that question, what do you think will happen, mom, dad, grandma, when we introduce this activity? And they are experts, remember, on their child. They're going to say, oh, he's going to hate that. Or we tried that and it's really hard. Or they're going to give you some feedback. And so this is one way that you can really get to know where the child is at and the family is at with different tasks. And then the second page is about reflection. So these 4 questions. How did the activity go for the child? How did you feel this went? What did I experience, and what I noticed that between our play together? And so these are all ways that you're going to start getting the parent to think and reflect on how these activities are going. And let's say, and it happens, sometimes an activity is a bomb, and that's disability or no disability. You go with a plan and it doesn't work. So there's these 3 boxes at the bottom that says, try another way. So what else can we try? What are your thoughts, mom, dad, grandma, that we could do? What are some other things that we could try? And it gives you some prompts to lead that conversation. How can we make this more fun? And we talk about music. Would you think he would enjoy pretending the blocks are instruments, etc.? So it gives you some ideas on what to say, and then just safety tip considerations as well. So really simple. You can see that there's no ages on here. There is no developmental tasks that we're trying to accomplish. We're really just exploring what is block play. We're noticing and experimenting and getting to know where they are with this particular task in development. I mentioned earlier, and that was a great question about working with a child who might have autism or a significant delay. And another one, another activity page that we have in this curriculum are the promoting development activity pages. And they too are laid out pretty differently. And sometimes meeting a child right where they are developmentally is going to be very, very small steps of progress. Sometimes it's big steps. Sometimes, you go and maybe the goal is to grasp and use manipulation with their hands. But you're noticing that those skills are not there yet. So this document here, this activity page, really helps frame the conversation. And so you might start with a parent. They say, well, my goal is for them to start grasping, maybe holding a spoon at some point. Look at all of the developmental tasks and skills that go into grasping. And so this is a prompt for you to talk about, well, there's visual tracking, there's palming, there's raking, reaching. Where is Will at? Where is he at with this skill? And so you could go through these tasks and say, oh, he definitely does visual tracking and he does palming, but he's not raking or reaching. So these are 2 areas that you can start working and consider in the activity. So one of the things that it does here is it helps the family really feel like they're gaining progress towards this goal. And it actually is breaking out the baby steps to meet the task and that skill of development. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll see the reflection. What are some other ways my child may use the same skills? And, crossing over some of those developmental areas. And then what I've noticed about the skills that are still developing. Maybe they're not paying attention to small objects, but they do pay attention to larger objects. And these are conversations that you can have with the parent. The second page here is, where does this skill lead? So then let's say we master or we get through grasping and manipulating, and we want to have the conversation about what is the point of doing all of these little steps and why will this help? Well, this grasping and manipulating will help us eventually get to pointing, poking, the pincer grasp, voluntary release, self-care skills, holding a pencil, and even cutting with scissors. So it really takes you through those small steps to get to a bigger goal in a milestone. And then there are also, this is a support, this is the back of the page, and this says next steps. We can try these other areas next time. And then there's like a little reflection box here that you guys can talk through. You don't have to do them all. It might be just one that you focus on each time. It might be really, really working on grasping, or because mom is wanting that child to feed themselves. So that may be the real goal at hand. And this is such a great activity to help with those documents. Yes, Eileen is pointing out that it goes with the ASQ. Absolutely. You're going to notice, again, no ages on here, no developmental tracking, no milestones on this. This is just helping us look at skills where they are and where it may lead. And so love these activity pages. And then there's some that are in the curriculum that are blank. Blank meaning these boxes are not filled. So you can choose the activity and then build it out to have the conversations, just like we do with our plans. We also have parent professional relationship activity pages built in. And this is really to help establish routines with other professionals that are going to be working with your child. What does the family want? What is the target? How are these interactions going to happen? And this is a great way for parents to start that planning and having those conversations. Adapting activity pages. Very simple questions, but it really helps us understand where we are and what our goal is. Right now, the situation is my child can't sit up in a high chair. Our child can, although, sit with support or sit with a strap. Maybe, and we want to build more strength so that they sit independently. So we could consider A, B, C, and D. And that's how this document is laid out, so that you start having these conversations and let parents really lead where they want to go with the activity and the adaptations. And then here are some more tips, again, for parent educator. How can we change the environment to support your goal? What are equipment and positioning things that we might need? And how can we adjust schedule? Different questions that you might ask to support and drive this conversation. Okay, I'm going to pause here. You all saw 3 different types of activity pages. What are your impressions? And how can you see yourself using some of this in your home visits?
I think the activity pages show a lot of guidance for how to interact with the family and things to sort of start the conversation and direction for where to head the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. It's really about family, where they're going next, right? And where you're meeting them right where they are. You're not pushing a developmental milestone or an age range on them either. And I see that in the chat. Very helpful. Yeah. And literally could have used this yesterday. Yeah, we hear this often. This is a great resource. And as we're thinking about this, how can we embed this within our daily visits? And I'm going to talk to that a little bit. We talked about this already, so I'm going to skip over to the parent-child interaction of parents as teachers in our 3 areas of emphasis, and just kind of make the connection. So these documents can fit in the 3 areas of emphasis, these activity pages and these parent handouts. So some of you that are using the curriculum could use an activity page from the interactions across abilities, like a couple of the ones we just saw, and those can be written in your plan. The interactions across ability is not just an adaptation. It can be used in your daily planning with families and can support your home visits. So meeting your areas of emphasis, these activity pages, these parent handouts can all be used and integrated within your work on a regular basis. Those of you that are using the foundational curriculum. Those of you that are using a different type or maybe not using the Parents as Teachers foundational curriculum, but are building your visits in a different setting or in a different way, you can consider the activity page and making sure that you're touching on that parent-child interaction to support that engagement and using the parenting behaviors concept. So it really benefits anyone who is planning a visit or doing work with families. It's going to guide those conversations. It's going to support your planning for visits and help you have the words to share and the handouts that you might want to bring. And also just give you some base knowledge. No disability, you're never going to see the exact same disability twice. Everyone is so different. And children, we know they develop differently. Same comes with children with disabilities. So a child with Down syndrome is a child with Down syndrome. They're not all going to have the same symptoms and paths of development. And so when we think about how we're going to serve families, this concept of meeting them where they are on that developmental level is how this curriculum is very, very effective. And I just have a couple of notes here about just some things that, the IAA supports your talks with promoting and recognizing red flags. Sometimes a family may not see it yet. They may not notice or are not ready to notice the red flag or the concern. And this is a great way to give you support in those conversations. It really just gives you some credibility with your knowledge as a parent educator. You have resources and evidence-based materials that you can share now using the curriculum. You have ways to give parents information that is not off of social media or a magazine or something that's not credible. And then you're able to help respond with parenting behaviors, which is so big in this with this population, because parents already feel they're struggling. They feel like they may not be getting their child where they need to be developmentally. So parenting behaviors and noticing those is such a great way to build up that family. Adapting activity so the child feels successful is another way. It builds those parent relationships and professional relationships outside that are going to be needed in the future for school and for navigating doctor's appointments and all that is to come. And then really maximizing participation through accommodations. I have a lot of stories of where we noticed a child not participating, but one slight adjustment and a modification really changed that and allowed a child to feel included and belong within a group, in a community, in daycare, in Head Start. And so your conversations about what is working is so meaningful for this child and for the family. And then again, just being really specific with diagnoses and the process, the diagnostic process, supporting a parent with those questions really brings some peace to families at this time. There's some other topics that are kind of broader topics that you'll know within the curriculum too. We have information about sharing sensitive information with families, adapting activities, walking families through the referral process if they haven't done that already. And then just some specific strategies and actual interventions that have worked for some. Floor time and ABCs of behavior are also, there's some content around that and strategies that you can pull from that within the curriculum. So can you see yourself using these resources in your visits? Are you excited about including any of this content in your personal visits? I just kind of want to hear from you all. I'm seeing some yes and some thumbs up and do you all currently have children with disabilities on your caseload? Or okay. I see Bonnie's comment. I see a lot of yeses. You do have kids with diagnosis or they're going through the diagnosis process, I bet. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Kylie, I think, working with your own child too, strategies that you might use within your personal world to family members, people that you love and have a diagnosis that is close to you. Siblings, yes. Very good point too, that there are ways, if you can use some of these components in planning visits, because you might go to a home where you have multiple children in the home, or where you're seeing maybe a child who is going through a delay or diagnosis, and maybe the foundational curriculum works for one child, but you need adaptations for another. This is a good way to kind of pair those and use and make modifications. Great points. I see, yeah, lots of what we know now is the statistic is 1 in 4 people we know will have a disability or delay. And so this is really part of working with families. It is part of our work. I would be surprised if you said, I don't work with any children or families that have, maybe they're not diagnosed, but you noticing there's some things going on in development. And so yeah, this becomes part of a resource for you as a parent educator. It really helps build your knowledge too. As you read and start working with families and support them, you're really going to gain some knowledge on some of these topics. And then you're just going to feel more confident as a parent educator, knowing that you could go to the curriculum, find some resources to help guide those conversations and help you feel more prepared. So I have a little poem up here that I'm going to leave with you guys, but thank you so much for your time, and hopefully you will see this beneficial and can incorporate this in some of your home visits.
Well, thank you so much, Rochelle and Lindsay. Before we close out, does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask Lindsay and Rochelle? I think they can be available at a later time if you ever want to email them. I don't know if you might want to put your email addresses in the chat for people to see.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. And then people can always contact you. Does anyone have any questions right now that come to mind? Okay.
One of the things that I do want to just lift up is, so I think Rochelle talked about this briefly, but so this is a curricula. There is also a 2-day training that supports this curricula. It is not necessary. So you can either purchase the curricula separate or as a part of a 2-day training, which currently we're offering on ground only. So you would need a minimum of 16 people in a general vicinity to schedule that training. But the training goes through kind of, Rochelle introduced a lot of stuff here, but goes much more in depth, not just about what's in the curricula, but the practices and skills that we have found are most beneficial for supporting families with children with delays in diagnoses. So that is also definitely something, if you're interested in, I'll put the training business email in the chat, because they are the ones who will support scheduling trainings. But again, the curricula comes by itself or supported by the 2-day training.
I do have a follow-up question to that. How much does this curriculum cost? And then also, how much does the training cost? I wasn't able to find that on your website.
Yes. So the curricula itself is $300 as a flat rate. There are some discounts for folks who may be involved with our Parents as Teachers programs, but for the most part, it's $300. The training, so then the training is $395, which is not on the website, because there's a little flex in that. But that $395 is per person. But we do have that 16-person minimum for the on-ground training right now, because it's only offered on ground. So it's $395 per person, and that includes the curricula in it. So it is a much better deal if you have the people who are available to do the training. It's a great training. We encourage it, obviously. But again, it's not necessary to get it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll just also just add about the training. You're going to learn so many ways to incorporate real live scenarios, real practice, and learn how to incorporate those in personal visits. So it goes in a way more involved with how to use the curriculum and navigate it and how it would best fit personal visits. You just really learn a lot from the actual training on ground.
And we do also offer this, so it's obviously not limited to just parents as teachers or home visitors even. So we have had folks who are in the training who are working in local early intervention or like OT, PT type roles that have benefited from this as well, especially for those who are working in close contact with home visiting programs, so that there's consistency across materials that are being supported or being used to support families on their caseloads.
And we just did one recently where the community got together, a few different programs joined and brought a group together to make the 16 people, and were able to host on-ground training within their community. And that was really exciting because we had a Head Start represented, we had some early intervention people, and we had parents as teachers folks also in the training.
Great.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Well, we're almost at 3 o'clock, just 4 minutes before the hour. So if there aren't any other questions, I'd just like to thank you, Rochelle, and you, Lindsay, for coming to present this for us. I think it's been very helpful. I know this is a question that comes up a lot from home visitors, that they need more support in this area. So
Thank you. Thanks for letting us. And I did also drop in the chat a while ago, and I can put it back in here, but a link to the website as well. And there's quite a substantial sample of the curricula on that page on the public website. And so if you want to just kind of dive in a little bit, I know Rochelle went through a little bit, like the whole table of contents is there. You can see a lot of these examples that shifted up, plus some more if you'd like to take a deeper dive before you purchase.
great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.